My name is Amira Hassan. I'm 28 years old. And I've spent the last 3 years of my life hiding. I should start at the beginning. Back when I thought I understood who I was. I grew up in Minya, in Upper Egypt. My father is an imam there. Was an imam. I don't know anymore. I haven't spoken to him in 3 years. Our family was respected. Known. People came to my father for advice, for religious guidance. My mother kept a good home. My 3 brothers all memorized the Quran. I wore hijab from the time I was 9. Prayed 5 times a day. I was a good Muslim daughter. I was also an artist. That's the thing that saved me and destroyed me at the same time. I studied Arabic calligraphy at university in Cairo, then came back to Minya to work at the museum. The museum isn't big, not like the ones in Cairo, but we have manuscripts. Old ones. Really old. Qurans from the 8th century. Poetry. Historical documents. And Christian texts. Coptic manuscripts. Minya has a lot of Christians. Always has. Maybe a third of the city. Growing up we lived separate lives mostly. Muslim shops, Christian shops. Muslim neighborhoods, Christian neighborhoods. Polite but distant. I never paid much attention to the Christian manuscripts at the museum. They were just part of the collection. Beautiful, sure, the illuminated pages, the careful script, but not really mine. Not my tradition. Then about 4 years ago, my supervisor assigned me to a restoration project. A set of Coptic gospel manuscripts from the 4th century. Damaged by water and time. Pieces missing. My job was to stabilize the pages, reconstruct what I could, make sure nothing more was lost. I said yes because that's what you do. It was my job. I didn't expect what happened next. When you restore a manuscript you have to work slowly. So slowly. You're looking at every fiber of the papyrus, every stroke of ink. You're touching something that someone else touched 1600 years ago. You're retracing their hand movements. And you read the words. You can't help it. Even when you're trying to focus on the physical restoration, the words are right there. I started with the Gospel of John. I remember the first line I reconstructed, a damaged passage where I had to match fragments. Something about light and darkness. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it. I kept thinking about that phrase. For days. The light shines in the darkness. There was something in the rhythm of it. The certainty. Not like it was trying to convince you. Just stating a fact. The light shines. Present tense. Still shining. I started arriving at work early so I could spend more time with the manuscripts. I told myself it was because I wanted to do excellent work. Which was true. But it was also because I wanted to keep reading. There was another conservator who worked with Christian texts. Her name was Marian. She was old, maybe 70, and she'd been at the museum longer than anyone. She was Coptic Christian. We'd exchanged greetings before but never really talked. She noticed me staying late, coming in early. One evening she brought me tea and sat down at my workstation. She asked if I was okay. If something was wrong at home. I told her no, everything was fine. I just found the work fascinating. She smiled. Not like she was making fun of me. Like she understood something I didn't understand yet. She started sitting with me sometimes during our breaks. We'd talk about calligraphy techniques. About the differences between Arabic and Coptic script. About the materials ancient scribes used. And slowly, carefully she started telling me stories. About the texts I was restoring. The context. What they meant to the people who copied them, who read them, who preserved them through centuries of persecution and loss. She told me about a God who became human. Who chose suffering. Who said things like blessed are those who mourn and the last will be first and love your enemies. I told her once that it didn't make sense. God couldn't become human. That was shirk, associating partners with God. The worst sin in Islam. She didn't argue. She just asked me to keep reading. To look at what the text itself said. So I did. I read the Sermon on the Mount while reconstructing a page where the ink had faded to almost nothing. I had to use ultraviolet light to see the letters. And as I traced them, made them visible again, I felt like something was being made visible in me too. Things I'd never questioned before started feeling like questions. Why did we have so many rules about how to pray, what to wear, what to eat, but Jesus kept talking about the heart, about what comes from inside a person? Why did the Quran say Christians corrupted their scriptures, but these ancient manuscripts I was touching, older than Islam itself, said the same things that modern Bibles said? Why was I so afraid all the time? Afraid of doing something wrong, saying something wrong, being something wrong. I started having dreams. Not dramatic visions or anything. Just dreams where I was standing in front of a door and I knew I was supposed to open it, but I was terrified of what was on the other side. Marian never pushed me. She just answered my questions when I asked them. And she prayed for me. She told me that once. She said she'd been praying for me since the day I started working on the gospel texts. The actual moment of conversion. I don't know if I can even pinpoint it exactly. It wasn't like a lightning bolt. It was more like I'd been walking towards something for months, and then one day I realized I'd already arrived. I was working late one night. Everyone else had gone home. I was alone with a manuscript of the crucifixion narrative. I'd been avoiding that text, actually, moving around it to other sections, because the idea of it still bothered me. God dying, God bleeding. But that night I made myself read it. Really read it. The part where Jesus asks if there's any other way. Where he sweats blood because he's so afraid. Where he cries out that God has abandoned him. And I understood suddenly. This wasn't God pretending to be human. This was God actually being human. Feeling everything we feel. Fear, pain, abandonment. And doing it anyway. Choosing it. 'Cause he loved us that much. I put my head down on the workstation and I cried. I don't think I'd cried like that since I was a child. Sobbing. My whole body shaking. When I could finally breathe again, I said it out loud. Just to the empty room and to God. I said I believed. I believed Jesus was who he said he was. That he died for me. That he rose again. All of it. I said I was sorry for taking so long. For being so afraid. And I know this sounds strange, but I felt like someone was holding me. Like I wasn't alone in that room. For about 6 months, I didn't tell anyone except Marian. We started meeting at her church early in the mornings before work. She discipled me, taught me to pray differently, helped me understand what I was reading. I was still wearing hijab, still going to Friday prayers with my family. I told myself I was being wise, waiting for the right time. But really I was just terrified. My youngest brother, Kareem, was the one who found out. He went through my phone while I was sleeping. I'd been texting with Marian, discussing Bible passages, asking questions about baptism. He woke up the whole house, screaming, calling me a kafra, an apostate, whore. My father didn't scream. That was almost worse. He just looked at me with this expression of complete disgust. Like I was something dirty he'd found on his shoe. He asked me if it was true. If I'd left Islam. I wanted to lie. I opened my mouth to lie. But nothing came out except the truth. Told him yes. I'd become a Christian. My mother started wailing. Literally tearing at her clothes. My brothers were yelling. Kareem grabbed me by the hair. My father told him to stop, but his voice was cold, distant. My father said I had 3 days to repent, to come back to Islam. If I didn't, I was no longer his daughter, no longer welcome in his house. He said this quietly, like he was discussing something mundane. What to have for dinner, when to fix the car. I spent those 3 days locked in my room. My mother came once. She sat on my bed and cried and begged me to just say the Shahada. Just say the words. She said I didn't have to mean them. Just say them so the family could save face. I told her I couldn't. I couldn't lie about this. She left without looking at me. On the 3rd day, my father came to my room with my brothers. He said I had to leave. They'd packed a bag for me, some clothes, my ID, a little money. My oldest brother, Ahmed, said if I ever came back, if I ever contacted anyone in the family, they'd kill me. He said this like he was telling me the weather forecast. Matter of fact, they drove me to the bus station, put me on a bus to Cairo. I watched Minya disappear through the dirty window, and I knew I'd never see it again. I'd like to say I felt brave, faithful, strong in my conviction. Mostly I just felt numb. In Cairo, I stayed with Marian's niece for a while. She was part of an underground network of believers, people who'd converted from Islam. We met in secret, in apartments, never the same place twice. We were careful about our phones, our internet use. Everyone had a story like mine. Some worse. I got work doing freelance calligraphy. Nothing official. I couldn't use my real credentials because word had spread in Minya. My father had made sure people knew I was an apostate. I was cut off from my profession, my reputation. I was lonely. So lonely. Not for my father or brothers. I was angry at them and afraid of them. But I missed my mother. I missed my sister Layla. She was 2 years younger than me. We'd shared a room growing up. She'd been there the night Kareem found out, but she hadn't said anything. Just stood there looking shocked and scared. I lived in Cairo for 2 years. Found a small church that met in a home. Got baptized in someone's bathtub because it wasn't safe to do it publicly. Made friends. Started to heal slowly. But I dreamed about my family constantly. Not good dreams. Dreams where I was trying to explain myself and they wouldn't listen. Dreams where I was locked out of the house, banging on the door. Then one day about 6 months ago, I got a Facebook message from an account I didn't recognize. No profile picture. Fake name. The message said, "This is Layla. I need to talk to you. Please don't tell anyone." I stared at that message for maybe 20 minutes before I replied. We started messaging secretly. She'd go to internet cafes so it couldn't be traced to her phone or computer. We were both terrified of our brothers finding out. First she just asked if I was okay, where I was living, if I had enough money. Then she started asking other questions. About why I'd converted. What I believed now. If I was happy. I answered everything honestly. I sent her passages from the Gospels. I told her about grace. About not having to earn God's love. She said our father had become harder after I left. More rigid. He was ashamed. The whole community knew. Some people had stopped coming to the mosque. She said our mother cried every day. I felt terrible about that. Still do. But I also knew I couldn't go back. Couldn't pretend. Not even to make my mother stop crying. 3 months ago, Layla told me she was coming to Cairo for a university exam. She asked if we could meet. Almost said no. Felt too risky. For both of us. But I missed her so much. We met at a coffee shop in a neighborhood where no one from Minya would be. She wore niqab so no one would recognize her. I wore Western clothes, no head covering. We must have looked like strangers to anyone watching. When she sat down across from me, I started crying before either of us said anything. She was crying too. She reached across the table and held my hand. We talked for 3 hours. She told me about home. About our brothers, our parents, the neighborhood. About how everyone asked about me at first and now they pretended I'd never existed. She told me she'd been reading the Bible. In English on her phone in secret. She had questions. So many questions. I answered what I could. I told her I'd pray for her. That God was already pursuing her or she wouldn't be asking. Before she left, she said something I'll never forget. She said she didn't know if she'd ever become a Christian. The cost was too high. She'd seen what it did to me. To our family. But she said she was glad I'd done it. That I'd been brave enough to be honest. Because now she knew it was possible to choose something different. Think for yourself. She said just knowing I existed somewhere, that I was okay, that I'd survived, it gave her hope. We still message sometimes. Not often. It's not safe. But enough that I know she's okay. I don't know what will happen with her. I pray about it constantly. I want her to find what I found. But I also know what it will cost her. I've lived that cost. Sometimes I still get angry at God about that. About why following him has to be so expensive. Why there couldn't be an easier way. But then I think about Jesus sweating blood in the garden. About him asking if there was another way. There wasn't another way for him either. People ask me if I regret it. If I'd do it differently. I don't know how to answer that. I miss my family every single day. I miss the life I had. The work I loved. The city where I grew up. I miss being able to call my mother. I miss my sister. But I can't unknow what I know now. Can't unfeel what I felt that night in the museum when I understood who Jesus really was. I'm still hiding. Still using a different name for work. Still careful about where I go and who I talk to. But I'm not alone. I have brothers and sisters here. The ones who meet in secret, who understand what it costs to follow Christ. I have Marion, who prayed for me before I knew I needed prayer. I have Jesus, who went through worse than anything I'm experiencing because he loved me that much. And I have hope that someday, somehow, my sister might find her way to the same truth. That maybe the words I traced with my hands in those ancient manuscripts will become real for her too. The light shines in the darkness. And the darkness has not overcome it. Believe that now. Even on the hard days. Especially on the hard days. My name is Amira Hassan. I'm 28 years old. And I'm finally free.